My name is Sophia Carter, and I am 22 years old. In 3 weeks, I will graduate summa cum laude from Northwestern University with a degree in biomedical engineering, a 3.9 GPA, and acceptance to Stanford's PhD program with a full fellowship. I have published 2 research papers, worked as a teaching assistant for 3 years, and spent my summers doing groundbreaking research on neural implants that could help paralyzed patients regain mobility. My brother Mason is 25 years old. He dropped out of MIT twice, currently lives in our parents' basement, works part-time at GameStop, and has not held a steady job for longer than 6 months in the past 3 years. His daily routine consists of sleeping until noon, playing video games until 3 in the morning, and explaining to anyone who will listen why his latest startup idea is going to revolutionize everything. Guess which one of us my family calls the smart one? If you guessed Mason, congratulations. You understand my life better than I do. I should have seen the pattern years ago, but it took my college graduation dinner for me to finally understand how deeply screwed up my family dynamics really were. The dinner was supposed to be a celebration of my achievements, a moment for my parents to acknowledge that their daughter had somehow managed to excel despite growing up in the shadow of their golden boy who could do no wrong even when he was doing everything wrong. Instead, it became another evening of the Mason Show, complete with the usual supporting cast of enablers who had been writing excuses for his failures since he was old enough to disappoint people. We went to Romano's, the upscale Italian restaurant where my family celebrated all major occasions. The same place where we had dinner when Mason got into MIT at 17, when he supposedly got his big break with his first startup idea, and when he moved back home after his second academic dismissal. Every milestone in the Carter family history happened at Romano's, apparently including the milestone of my parents completely ignoring my actual accomplishments to focus on Mason's theoretical potential. "So, Sophie," my father said, as we settled into our usual booth, the one with the view of the parking lot and the permanent wine stain on the white tablecloth. "Tell us about Stanford." I straightened in my seat, grateful that someone was finally going to ask about the PhD program I had worked 4 years to get into. "The research program is incredible, Dad. I will be working with Dr. Patricia Williams, who is literally writing the textbook on biomedical applications of neural interface technology. The lab I will be joining just received a $2.5 million grant from the National Science Foundation." "That sounds wonderful, honey," my mother said, but her eyes were already drifting toward Mason, who was slumped in his chair, scrolling through his phone, instead of participating in the conversation about his sister's future. "Mason, put the phone away," Dad said. "We are celebrating Sophie's graduation." Mason looked up with the expression of someone who had been asked to perform calculus in his head while juggling flaming torches. "Sorry, I was just checking on my crypto investments. Bitcoin is having a crazy day." Crypto investments was Mason's current euphemism for the $300 he had put into Dogecoin 2 years ago and watched lose 90% of its value while insisting he was playing the long game. "How are those going?" Mom asked with the kind of genuine interest she had never shown in my research. "Really well, actually. I think I have figured out the market patterns. I have been developing this algorithm that predicts price fluctuations based on social media sentiment analysis." There it was. Another revolutionary idea from the mind that had brought us such previous innovations as the app that would Uberize dog walking and the subscription service that would deliver personalized vitamin cocktails based on your astrological sign. "That sounds fascinating," Dad said. "How does it work?" For the next 20 minutes, Mason explained his cryptocurrency algorithm in the kind of detail that made it clear he had spent considerable time researching this topic instead of looking for a real job. He used terms like machine learning and sentiment parsing and blockchain integration with the confidence of someone who had watched a lot of YouTube videos and believed that made him an expert. My parents hung on every word. "You should patent that," Mom said, when Mason finally paused to take a drink of his beer. "I am thinking about it, but I want to make sure I have all the kinks worked out first. You know how I am about perfectionism." Perfectionism. From the man who had been kicked out of MIT twice, once for failing to attend classes, and once for cheating on his final exams. From the man who had quit 6 different jobs in 3 years because he was overqualified, or did not fit with the company culture, or had creative differences with management. "Speaking of patents," I said, trying to steer the conversation back to reality, The neural interface research I have been working on has some really promising applications for spinal cord injury recovery. We might actually be able to help people walk again. That is nice, honey, Dad said absently, already turning back to Mason. So this algorithm, do you think you could scale it? Turn it into a business? Absolutely. I have been thinking about starting a consulting firm. Maybe call it Carter Analytics or something like that. Help people optimize their investment portfolios using predictive modeling. Carter Analytics. A consulting firm run by a man who had never successfully completed a college degree, had no professional experience in finance or technology, and whose most impressive credential was a part-time job selling video games to teenagers. That sounds like $1 million idea, Mom said. $1 million idea. Like all of Mason's $1 million ideas that had generated exactly $0 in revenue, but somehow always merited serious discussion and enthusiastic support from our parents. What would you need to get started? Dad asked. Just some seed money for market research and development, maybe $20,000 or $30,000 to cover expenses while I build the client base. $20,000 or $30,000. The same amount of money my parents had told me they could not afford to help with my graduate school expenses, even though I had a full fellowship and would only need help with living costs. We should talk about that, Dad said. I think we might be able to help you get started. I set down my fork, no longer able to pretend I was eating the pasta that had been sitting untouched on my plate for the past half hour. Are you serious right now? What do you mean, Sophie? Mom asked. I mean, you are talking about giving Mason $30,000 for another one of his imaginary businesses, but when I asked if you could help me with moving expenses for Stanford, you said money was tight. That is different, Dad said. How is it different? Mason is trying to start a business. You are just going to school. Just going to school. As if getting a PhD in biomedical engineering from Stanford was equivalent to taking pottery classes at the community center. Dad, I am not just going to school. I am getting a doctorate degree that will allow me to conduct research that could actually help people. Real people with real problems. Not theoretical cryptocurrency investors who need help optimizing their portfolios. Sophie, do not be negative, Mom said. You should be supportive of your brother's ambitions. His ambitions? What about my ambitions? What about the fact that I am about to become the first person in our family to get a PhD? We are proud of you, honey, but you have always been good at school. It is not really a surprise that you are successful academically. Not really a surprise. 4 years of maintaining a near-perfect GPA while working part-time and conducting research and applying for competitive graduate programs, and it was not really a surprise because I had always been good at school. And Mason has always been smart too, Dad added. He just needs to find the right opportunity to show what he can do. Dad, Mason has had plenty of opportunities to show what he can do. MIT was an opportunity. His internship at Google was an opportunity. The 3 different startups he joined and quit were opportunities. He was not ready for those opportunities. He was too young, too idealistic. But now he is more mature, more focused, more mature, more focused. The man who had spent the morning before my graduation playing World of Warcraft for 6 hours straight and arguing with strangers on Reddit about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. Mason, what do you think? I asked, turning to face my brother directly. Do you think you are ready for this opportunity? Mason looked up from his phone, where he had been scrolling through TikTok videos while our parents discussed his brilliant business prospects. What opportunity? The consulting firm, Carter Analytics, the thing you have been talking about for the past 20 minutes. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I have been thinking about it for a while. I just needed to wait for the right time to make my move. And when did you start thinking about it? A few weeks ago, maybe a month. A few weeks ago. Another $1 million idea that had occurred to him a few weeks ago, and our parents were already talking about investing $30,000 in it. What happened to the app idea? The one that was going to revolutionize food delivery? That was different. The market was not ready for that level of innovation. And the fitness tracking startup? The investors did not understand the vision. And the social media platform for pet owners? Sophie, why are you being so negative? Mom interrupted. Mason is trying to build something, trying to create his own path. You should be encouraging him, not tearing him down. Tearing him down by asking basic questions about his business plan and pointing out that he had a track record of abandoning projects as soon as they required actual work. I am not tearing him down. I am asking reasonable questions about why you are more excited about his latest idea than you are about my acceptance to Stanford. We are excited about Stanford, Dad said. But you have to understand, Mason's situation is more delicate. Delicate how? He has been struggling to find his place in the world. This could be his chance to really succeed at something. And what about my chance to succeed? What about the research I am doing that could actually change people's lives? You are already successful, Sophie. You have always been the responsible one, the one who does not need our help. Mason needs more support right now. The responsible one, the one who does not need help. As if being responsible was a character flaw that disqualified me from receiving the same level of investment and encouragement that my parents showered on their underachieving golden boy. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice getting louder despite my efforts to stay calm. Because I have worked hard and made good choices, I do not deserve your support. But because Mason has failed at everything he has tried, he deserves $30,000 and endless second chances. It is not about deserving anything, Mom said. It is about helping family members when they need it. And you do not think I need help? You do not think moving across the country for graduate school might be stressful or expensive or challenging? You can handle it, Sophie. You have always been able to handle things. Always been able to handle things. Like handling the fact that every family gathering became a celebration of Mason's potential, while my actual achievements were treated as inevitable and therefore unworthy of praise. Like handling the fact that my parents had spent tens of thousands of dollars bailing Mason out of his various failures, while telling me I needed to be more financially independent. Mason, I said, turning back to my brother, do you think this is fair? What do you mean? I mean, do you think it is fair that Mom and Dad are talking about giving you money for a business you thought of 3 weeks ago while telling me they cannot help with my graduate school expenses? Mason shifted uncomfortably in his seat, finally looking up from his phone. I mean, they are not giving me anything yet. We are just talking about it. But if they do give you the money, do you think that would be fair? Sophie, I do not know why you are making this about fairness. We are talking about different things. We are talking about our parents investing in their children's futures. How is that different? Because your future is already set. You have the fellowship. You have the acceptance. You have everything figured out. I am still trying to find my path. Still trying to find his path. At 25 years old, after 7 years of false starts and abandoned projects and failures that were always someone else's fault, the conversation continued to spiral, but I could see that nothing was going to change. My family had made their choice years ago about which child deserved investment and which child should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention came their way. I stood up from the table, suddenly exhausted by the conversation and the years of accumulated resentment it represented. I think I am going to go home. Sophie, please do not leave like this, Dad said. But I was already walking toward the exit, finally understanding that some battles are not worth fighting, because the other side will never admit there is a war going on. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at my Stanford acceptance letter, trying to figure out why achieving everything I had worked for felt so hollow. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from my parents asking me to come back, telling me we could work this out, insisting that I was overreacting to what they called a misunderstanding. But it was not a misunderstanding. It was 22 years of being the child who did not need anything because she was capable of providing for herself. I called my roommate Jessica, who was studying abroad in London. How did the graduation dinner go? She asked. Terrible. They spent the entire evening talking about Mason's latest cryptocurrency scheme instead of my Stanford acceptance. Wait, what? Sophie, that is insane. What was his scheme this time? Some consulting firm he wants to start based on an algorithm he developed by watching YouTube videos. They offered him $30,000 in startup money. Are you kidding me? Did not you ask them for help with moving expenses last month? Yes, and they told me I needed to learn to be more financially independent. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Sophie, I have to ask you something, and it might be hard to hear. What? Why do you keep expecting them to change? You have been telling me these stories for 4 years. This is not new behavior. The question hit me like cold water. She was right. This was not new. Mason had been the favorite since we were children, getting praise for mediocre efforts while I was expected to excel without recognition. I had spent years hoping that eventually, if I achieved enough, they would see me as worthy of the same investment and enthusiasm they showed him. I guess I thought there was some threshold of achievement that would finally get their attention. Sophie, there is no threshold. There is just who they are and how they choose to treat you. And you have been accepting it because you were afraid that if you demanded better, you might lose them completely. After we hung up, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I was going to stop going home for family dinners. I was going to stop exposing myself to conversations where my achievements were treated as footnotes to Mason's latest ideas. The next week, Mom called to invite me to Sunday dinner. I cannot make it, I said. Why not? Are you still upset about last weekend? I am not upset, Mom. I am done. Done with what? Done pretending that this family treats me fairly. Done being grateful for scraps of attention while Mason gets celebrated for failing upward. Sophie, you are being dramatic. We love you just as much as we love Mason. No, you do not. You love Mason unconditionally. You love me when I make you proud, which apparently requires me to achieve things while also not expecting you to care about those achievements. That is not true. Mom, last weekend you offered Mason $30,000 for a business idea he had been thinking about for 3 weeks. When I asked for help with moving expenses for Stanford, you lectured me about financial responsibility. Those are different situations. You are right, they are different. My situation involved actual achievement and a real future. Mason's situation involved another fantasy that will never materialize. Mason is trying to build something meaningful, and I am not? Mom, I am about to start a PhD program that could lead to medical breakthroughs that save lives. How is that less meaningful than Mason's cryptocurrency consulting firm? You do not understand the pressure Mason is under. What pressure? The pressure of living rent-free in your basement while working part-time and playing video games? The pressure of having parents who make excuses for every failure and celebrate every half-formed idea? Sophie, you are being cruel. I am being honest. And maybe if someone had been honest with Mason years ago, he would not be 25 years old with nothing to show for his life except a collection of abandoned projects. He is still young. He has time to figure things out. He has had 7 years to figure things out. At what point do you stop calling it figuring things out and start calling it what it is? What is it? Failure. Chronic, consistent failure that you have enabled by refusing to hold him accountable for anything. Mom was quiet for a long time. I do not like this version of you, Sophie. This version of me that refuses to pretend everything is fine. This version that expects to be treated with the same respect you show Mason. You are right. You probably would not like this version, because this version will not make herself smaller, so everyone else can feel bigger. You are angry. I am disappointed. For 22 years, I thought if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, proved myself enough, you would finally see me as worthy of the same love and investment you give Mason automatically. But I realize now that nothing I do will ever be enough because the problem is not with my performance. The problem is with your priorities. What does that mean? It means you love Mason's potential more than you love my results. You love his ideas more than my achievements. You love who he might become more than who I already am. I hung up and did not answer when she called back. 3 weeks later, I graduated summa cum laude. My parents came to the ceremony, along with Mason, who spent most of the time on his phone. During the reception afterward, I introduced them to Dr. Sarah Kim, the professor who had supervised my research. Sophie is one of the most promising students I have worked with in 15 years of teaching, Dr. Kim told my parents. Her research on neural interfaces has already attracted attention from major medical device companies. She is going to do incredible things at Stanford. We are very proud of her, Dad said, in the tone he used when he was trying to sound enthusiastic about something he did not really understand. You should be. Students like Sophie are rare. She has the perfect combination of intellectual brilliance and practical application skills. After Dr. Kim walked away, Mason spoke up for the first time all afternoon. It is kind of weird that she called you brilliant. I mean, you are smart, but brilliant seems like a strong word. There it was. Even at my graduation, even after hearing a respected professor describe my work in glowing terms, Mason could not let me have the moment without undermining it. Why is it weird? I asked. I do not know. Brilliant people usually struggle more with practical stuff. You have always been more of a hard worker than a natural genius. Mason, Dad said quietly, that is not appropriate. But the damage was done. Even my own graduation had become another opportunity for Mason to remind everyone that his intelligence was natural and effortless, while mine was just the product of grinding effort. "You are right," I said to Mason. "I am not a natural genius like you. I am just someone who turns her intelligence into actual accomplishments." "Well, what is that supposed to mean?" "It means that being brilliant is only valuable if you do something with it. And so far, your brilliance has produced exactly nothing." "Sophie," Mom warned. "No, I am tired of pretending this is normal. Mason gets called brilliant for having ideas. I get called a hard worker for achieving things. Mason gets investment for potential. I get told to be grateful for what I have already earned." "You are making this about competition again," Dad said. "I am not making it about competition. You made it about competition 22 years ago when you decided that one child deserved unconditional support and the other child deserved conditional acknowledgement. We have never treated you differently than Mason. Dad, you literally offered him $30,000 for a business idea he had been thinking about for 3 weeks. You refused to help me with moving expenses for Stanford. How is that not treating us differently? Mason needs more help right now. Why? Because he has failed at everything he has tried? Because he cannot hold a job? Because he lives in your basement at 25? How does any of that make him more deserving of help than someone who has succeeded at everything she has attempted?" "Success comes more easily to you," Mom said. "No, it does not. I work incredibly hard for everything I achieve. The difference is that when I encounter obstacles, I figure out how to overcome them instead of quitting and blaming other people. Mason is more sensitive than you are. He needs more encouragement. And I do not need encouragement. I do not need someone to celebrate my achievements and tell me they are proud of me and invest in my future. You do not need it the same way Mason does. Because I am strong enough to handle being ignored? Because you are self-sufficient. You always have been." There it was, the core of the problem. I was being punished for my competence, penalized for my ability to handle challenges without falling apart. Because I could succeed without their help, they assumed I did not need their support. Because Mason could not function without constant assistance, he got unlimited second chances and financial backing. What if I do not want to be self-sufficient? What if I want parents who are as excited about my real achievements as they are about Mason's imaginary ones? "Sophie, you are being unreasonable." "I am being honest. And apparently, honesty is unreasonable in this family." That conversation marked the beginning of the most difficult period of my relationship with my parents. Over the summer, as I prepared to move to Stanford, they continued to call and text, trying to convince me to work things out and stop being so stubborn. But I was not being stubborn. I was protecting myself from people who consistently made me feel invisible and unimportant. Meanwhile, Mason's cryptocurrency consulting firm never materialized. Like every other project he had started, it faded away as soon as the initial excitement wore off and actual work was required. By August, he was talking about a new idea involving NFTs and digital art, and my parents were listening with the same enthusiasm they had shown for his previous schemes. I moved to Stanford without their help, using money I had saved from my teaching assistantship and a small loan I qualified for as a graduate student. The day I left Chicago, Mason was asleep in the basement, and my parents were at work, so I said goodbye to an empty house and drove away from 22 years of feeling like I did not matter. Stanford was everything I had hoped it would be and more. Dr. Williams was a brilliant mentor who challenged me intellectually while supporting my research goals. My lab mates were serious, dedicated scientists who appreciated hard work and innovative thinking. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued results over potential, achievement over promises. 3 months into the program, I was working late in the lab when my phone rang. It was Dad. "Sophie, we need to talk." "About what?" "About Mason. He is in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "Financial trouble. He borrowed money from some people to invest in cryptocurrency, and it did not work out. He owes them $15,000. And we were wondering if you could help." I set down my pipette and stared at the wall, trying to process what I was hearing. "You want me to give Mason $15,000? "Not give. Loan. We would pay you back." "Dad, you refused to help me with $5,000 in moving expenses, but you want me to loan Mason $15,000 to cover his gambling debts?" "It is not gambling. It was an investment that went wrong." "It was gambling, Dad. Cryptocurrency speculation is gambling. And now you want me to bail him out?" He is your brother. He is your son. Why is not this your responsibility? We do not have that kind of liquid cash right now. Because you spent it on his previous failed ventures? Sophie, please. He is really scared. These people are not the kind of people you want to owe money to. Then maybe he should not have borrowed money from them. It is too late for that now. We need to focus on solving the problem. We do not need to do anything, Dad. Mason created this problem. Mason can solve this problem. He cannot solve it on his own. Why not? He is 25 years old. He is brilliant, remember? He should be able to figure something out. You know it is not that simple. It is exactly that simple. Mason made a series of bad decisions, and now he wants other people to fix the consequences. This is the same pattern he has been following his entire adult life. Sophie, if something happens to Mason because we did not help him, how will you feel? Like his poor choices finally caught up with him. That is a terrible thing to say about your brother. Dad, I have spent my entire life watching you enable Mason's irresponsibility. Every time he fails, you bail him out. Every time he makes a mistake, you help him fix it. Every time he needs money, you find a way to give it to him. And every single time, you make it worse by teaching him that he does not have to live with the consequences of his actions. We are trying to help him. You are trying to control him. You are trying to manage his life because you are afraid that if you let him fail completely, it will reflect poorly on you as parents. That is not true, is it not? Because from where I sit, it looks like you care more about appearing to be good parents than you do about actually being good parents. What is that supposed to mean? It means that good parents teach their children how to handle adversity, how to take responsibility for their choices, how to solve their own problems. You have taught Mason that he can make any mistake he wants because someone will always be there to fix it for him. And what have we taught you? That I do not matter as much as he does. That my success is expected and therefore not worth celebrating. That being responsible means being invisible. Dad was quiet for a long time. Sophie, what do you want from us? I want you to let Mason face the consequences of his choices. I want you to stop asking me to sacrifice my financial security to enable his irresponsibility. And I want you to understand that being a good parent means preparing your children for the real world, not protecting them from it. So you will not help him? I will not enable him. There is a difference. He is going to be very disappointed. Good. Maybe disappointment will motivate him to make better choices. Sophie, I do not understand what happened to you. You used to care about family. I still care about family, Dad. But I have learned that caring about family does not mean sacrificing yourself to fix other people's problems. It means loving people enough to let them grow up. After I hung up, I sat in the empty lab thinking about the conversation and what it revealed about my family's priorities. Even now, even after everything that had happened, they were still trying to make Mason's problems my responsibility. The next morning, I got a text from Mason. Thanks a lot for not helping me. I guess I know where your priorities are. I responded. My priorities are with people who take responsibility for their choices and work hard to achieve their goals. When you decide to become that kind of person, let me know. He did not text back. 2 weeks later, I found out through a mutual friend that my parents had taken out a second mortgage on their house to pay off Mason's debt. They had risked their retirement security to bail out their 25-year-old son, rather than let him face the consequences of his gambling. I felt sorry for them, but I also felt vindicated. This was exactly the kind of enabling behavior that had created the problem in the first place. 6 months later, Mason moved out of my parents' house and in with a girlfriend he had met online. According to May, my younger cousin who still lived in Chicago, he was working at a different GameStop and talking about starting a YouTube channel about cryptocurrency investing. Meanwhile, my research at Stanford was going better than I had ever imagined. I was part of a team that was developing neural implants that could help stroke victims recover motor function. We had published 3 papers, and pharmaceutical companies were already expressing interest in licensing our technology. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who saw my value and wanted to invest in my success. My advisor nominated me for competitive fellowships. My lab mates collaborated with me on projects. The professors in my program treated me like a colleague rather than a student. It was everything I had wanted from my family but had never received. During spring break of my first year, instead of going home to Chicago, I flew to Portland to visit my friend Marcus, who was finishing medical school at OHSU. We spent the weekend hiking in the Columbia River Gorge and talking about our research. "You seem different," Marcus said as we sat by a waterfall, eating sandwiches and enjoying the sunshine. "Different how?" "Happier. More confident. Like you finally figured out who you are when you are not trying to prove yourself to other people." "I think that is exactly what happened." "How does it feel?" "Liberating. For 22 years, I measured my worth by whether my family recognized my achievements. Now I measure it by whether I am proud of what I have accomplished." "And are you?" "Yes. For the first time in my life, I am genuinely proud of who I am and what I have done." "What changed?" "I stopped trying to earn love from people who were not capable of giving it freely. I stopped making myself smaller so other people could feel bigger. I stopped accepting crumbs when I deserved the whole meal." "That sounds like it was hard." "It was terrifying. I was afraid that if I stopped accepting whatever they were willing to give me, I would lose them completely." "And did you?" "I lost the version of them that treated me poorly, but I gained something much more valuable." "What?" "Myself. The version of myself that knows her worth and refuses to accept less than she deserves." That summer, I got an internship at a biotech startup in San Francisco that was developing next-generation neural interfaces. The work was challenging and exciting, and the company offered me a position after graduation with a starting salary that was more than my parents made combined. I called them to share the news, hoping that maybe this achievement would finally break through their indifference. "That is wonderful, honey," Mom said. "We are very proud of you." "Thank you. The company is doing really innovative work in neural prosthetics. We could literally help paralyzed people walk again." "That sounds amazing. By the way, did we tell you that Mason started his YouTube channel? He already has 200 subscribers. 200 subscribers. After everything I had told her about my internship and job offer, she wanted to talk about Mason's YouTube channel. "That is nice, Mom. He is really finding his voice as a content creator. We think he might be onto something big this time." This time. The phrase that had defined Mason's entire adult life. This time would be different. This time would be the breakthrough. This time would prove that he was the genius everyone believed him to be. "I hope it works out for him." "Sophie, you sound distant. Are you okay?" "I am fine. I just have to go. I have a research presentation to prepare for." "Okay, honey. We love you." "I know, but I was not sure I believed it anymore. I think they loved the idea of me, the daughter who succeeded academically and made them look good to their friends. But I do not think they loved the real me, the person who had opinions and needs and feelings that did not always align with their expectations." As I hung up the phone, I realized that I was okay with that. I had spent 22 years trying to earn their love, and it had nearly destroyed my sense of self-worth. Now I was learning to love myself, and that was proving to be much more reliable. 2 years later, I defended my dissertation early and graduated with my PhD at 24. The research I had conducted led to 3 patents and a job offer from every major medical device company in the world. I chose to work for a startup that was developing revolutionary treatments for spinal cord injuries because I wanted to be part of something that could change lives. My parents came to my graduation, along with Mason, who spent most of the ceremony playing games on his phone. During the reception, several professors approached them to congratulate them on raising such an accomplished daughter. "Sophie is going to change the world," Dr. Williams told them. "Her research could help millions of people recover from neurological injuries." "We always knew she was special," Dad said, which was news to me. Later, as we were leaving the campus, Mason pulled me aside. "Sophie, I wanted to apologize." "For what?" "For everything. For being jealous of your success. For not supporting you the way I should have. For taking all the attention and resources while you were actually doing something meaningful with your life." I stared at him, surprised by the unexpected honesty. "What brought this on?" "Watching you today. Seeing how respected you are, how much you have accomplished. And realizing that while you were changing the world, I was still living in Mom and Dad's basement making excuses for why nothing was ever my fault. What are you going to do about it?" "I am going back to school, community college first, then transfer to finish my bachelor's degree. I want to do something that matters, like you do. That is a good start. Sophie, do you think you could ever forgive me, not just for the recent stuff, but for everything? For letting Mom and Dad treat you like you did not matter as much as I did?" I considered the question, thinking about all the years of resentment and hurt feelings and feeling invisible in my own family. I forgive you, Mason, but forgiveness does not mean going back to the way things were. It means accepting what happened and choosing to move forward differently. What does that look like? It looks like you proving through your actions that you have changed, not just through your words. It looks like you taking responsibility for your choices and their consequences. It looks like you supporting me the way I wish you had all along. I can do that. We will see. 5 years later, Mason graduated from community college with a degree in computer science and got a job as a junior software developer. He moved into his own apartment, started paying his own bills, and began the long process of becoming the adult he should have been years earlier. My parents eventually acknowledged that they had treated us differently, though they never fully understood the damage their favoritism had caused. They started making an effort to celebrate my achievements, but by then, I had learned to celebrate them myself. I built a life surrounded by people who valued my contributions, who saw my worth, who invested in my success because they believed in my potential to make a difference. I published research that helped develop new treatments for paralysis. I started a company that brought these treatments to market. I found love with someone who was proud of my intelligence instead of threatened by it. Most importantly, I learned that being the smart one is not about having potential or ideas or dreams. It is about turning your intelligence into something meaningful, something that makes the world better, something that proves your worth through results rather than promises. For 22 years, my family called Mason the smart one because they confused potential with performance, ideas with implementation, promises with results. But I learned that true intelligence is not just about what you could do. It is about what you actually do. And what I did was build a life where my intelligence was valued, my achievements were celebrated, and my worth was never questioned. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is refuse to accept being treated as less than you are. Sometimes intelligence means knowing when to walk away from people who cannot see your value. Sometimes being smart means choosing yourself over the comfort of familiarity. I am the smart one, not because anyone told me so, but because I proved it through my choices, my achievements, and my refusal to accept anything less than I deserved. And that is the smartest thing I ever did.